So now I have the passenger and cargo levels in, and now this maximum takeoff weight, your zero fuel weight, and your center of gravity have all been updated. So we're done with the payload page. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to click return. Now that those weight values have been put into the FMC, I can come back to the captain's page, or captain's FMC, and now I can start building my route. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to departure. I'm going to select KSLC and departure. I'm going to select that. Now I'm going to switch over to one of the VATSIM clients. This is a program you use anytime you're playing on the VATSIM network. And I've already filed a route plan, so I don't have to worry about anything. But whenever you file a route plan, you put in all your information here. You just fill in the blank. So I already have a route input, and it's going to be WEVX 6 is going to be my departure route from Salt Lake City. So I'm going to click back over to the game, and I'm going to just keep scrolling through pages until I find WEVX 6, which is this one right here, WEVX 6. I'm going to select that. It's going to ask me for a transition point, which this route that I have actually does have a transition point, which is going to be EHK. So I find EHK here. I select that. Now I have to select a runway to take off on. So for runways, what I will do is I will reference what they had input here on the FlightAware page. Technically you can pick any runway you want, but depending on the type of route that you have filed, sometimes it's easier to take off from specific runways, so that way it's easier to intercept your route and you don't have to do a whole lot of turning and things like that. So looking at this, I can tell that the runway they're using is going to be, using the chart, is going to be runway 16 left. That's the runway they use to take off. So what I'll do is I'll go back to Flight Simulator and I'll pick 16 left. And I'll enter that in. So now I have a SID or departure route, a transition point, and a runway all programmed in there. So I'll click on route. That information is going to be populated, 16 left. Next what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my departure route, or I'm sorry, arrival route. So I'll go to KLAX, click on arrival. Now based off the route that I put into the VATSIM, I know that my arrival route is going to be this very last point, which is Angel 1. So I'll go back to Flight Simulator, and here we have Angel 1. That's going to be my star or arrival route that I'm going to fly on the way into LAX. So I'll click that. Now it's asking for a transition point. I don't know if there is a transition point in this route. Actually there is. So my transition point for the Angel 1 arrival procedure is going to be this Hackman. So I'll go back to my flight management computer. Under transition, here we have Hackman right there, so I'll select that. And then for my arrival runway, I know that I would like to fly the route how would I explain? Farthest east. I would like to arrive from the east. The simplest runways to use when you're arriving east are going to be your runways 24 and 25. That's just because of their orientation. So for the fun of it, I'll use runway 24 right because I know that's going to be a shorter runway. I have ILS 24 right selected for my approach runway, as well as my star, which is Angel 1, and my transition point, which is Hackman. So I'll press route. Now, even though I have my arrival and my departure points set up, I still have the points set up for what's going to fall in between those. So, what I'm going to do is, you see there's 3 pages of route information. I'm going to press next page. I'm going to go to the second one. So we have some route discontinuities that we'll fix in just a minute. So, this is kind of how the route is so far, at least the first half. I'm departing via WebEx 6 with EHK transition. And that's going to take me to point EHK. Next, what I'm going to do, looking at the route that I have filed, after following EHK, I have this point here, which is Laker or Laker. I don't really know how you would pronounce that. Either way, I'm going to type this in exactly how it is into the FMC. So I'm going to click on the bottom screen of the screen here. I'm going to type in LAKRR, just like that. Now I'm going to input that in the boxes directly following EHK. Okay, so that what that means is after we hit EHK, we're going to fly directly to Laker. Then, after Laker, we have this here. Anytime you see a single letter followed by a series of numbers, it could be 1, 2, or 3 numbers usually. What that is, it's an airway. Now, I don't know the simplest way to explain what an airway is, other than the fact that it's kind of like a traffic pattern within a traffic pattern, if that makes any sense. Basically, once I've reached point Laker, I'm going to follow a specific set of points that will eventually take me to Hackman. So once I get to Laker, I'm going to follow the traffic pattern that'll take me to Hackman, which would be my next navigation point. My next major navigation point. And it's also my transition point to fly the Angel 1 arrival. So, to enter this, the airway, the way you do it is you click on the right, or the left, this section here, type that in, click it, you type it in, which is Q88, and then you enter it in. Now that knows that rather than flying directly to your next point, it's going to follow this pattern in order to take me to Hackman, which is my next point. And I'm just going to free type that in. So after Q88, or after Laker, it's going to fly the Q88 pattern until we get to Hackman. Then, following Hackman, you have this here. It's similar to how you would read the departure information. So what this is saying is, reaching transition point Hackman, you're going to begin flying the Angel 1 route. And we also have another empty box here. We don't want that because that's going to be a route discontinuity. So, just to kind of get everything together and continuous, what we want to do is take the very next point, which is going to be this Mercy. All we're going to do is we're going to click the box next to Mercy to pop it in here, and we're going to drop that into the empty space below Circus, and that'll get rid of the route discontinuity. And that's it. Our route information is complete. So we've got our departure and our first point. We've got our direct, follow the next point. We've got our airway, and then the next point. And then we have our transition, and then our arrival route, followed by another checkpoint, and then eventually our final arrival on runway 24 right. So next thing I'm going to do is, now that the route is set up exactly how it should be, I'm going to click on activate and then press execute. So now when I look at this monitor here, let me zoom out a little bit, and I go up to this scroll wheel here, I can zoom out and there I can see my route. All those points are in my route now. Okay, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the next section, which is performance initialize. This is where you input a lot of your information to help your flight management computer calculate things like speeds and altitudes and things like that. So for my route, I input that my planned cruise altitude is going to be at 36,000 feet, or flight level 360. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to type in FL for flight level, and then 360. This will translate to 36,000 feet. Anytime you're flying over 18,000 feet and you're on what's called the Instrument Flight Rules, IFR, they always use FL followed by 3 numbers to indicate how high you are. Once you fall below 18,000 feet, they don't use that anymore. They'll just use your standard 16,000, 14,000, 10,000, and so on. So I'm going to input FL 360. I'm going to put that over here right underneath cruise altitude. Now that's popped in. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate my zero fuel weight. I mean, you're pretty familiar with this by now, so you know that you can just click the button next to zero fuel weight. Click it twice and it'll put that information there for you. Fuel reserves, I usually just use 5.0 because I don't know how to calculate fuel, so I just use kind of a standard number. So I put 5.0 into reserves. Cost index, I'm going to type in 60. I'm just making up that number. I'm going to type 60 in and put it right there under cost index. I've got this section here. It's CRZ, which is short for course, and then wind. I don't know if it's referencing the wind at the airport or if it references the expected wind for when you get to cruise altitude. I usually just type in whatever is at the airport. I have this program which is called VATSpy. That's what you use for just to kind of get an idea on who's doing what for VATSim. But by using it, you can kind of use this information here. You find the airport you're going to be at. You can right click it and you go to this KSLC, what's called MATAR, and what that is, it's just a weather report. It's hard to read and it takes kind of a little bit of getting used to. But there's a couple things I'm looking for excuse me, from this list here. So you have, first thing it says is KSLC, which is your airport that you're looking at. You have this information here, 262154Z. It kind of looks like just a jumble of nonsense, but what it actually is it's a date and time of which this report was generated. So the 26, the first 2 numbers indicates the date. So it being the 26th of September, we know that the 26 represents that. And then the 4 numbers that succeed it, 2154, is the current time, or the time at which the report was generated in Zulu time. So easiest way to read this is to take this information. 2154 would indicate that this report was generated at 9:54 Zulu time, which would be 2:54 Pacific time. You subtract 7 from that. Then you have this next section here, 31009 KT. That jumble is your wind information. So the first 3 numbers always indicate the course or heading of the wind, which is 310. The 2 numbers after that indicate the speed in knots. So we know reading this, our wind is at 310 at 0 knots, 09 knots. So I'm going to use that information right now, and I'm going to type in 310 / because it requires a slash here in order to put both things in, 09.